it's a lot of work to create your online retail ecosystem, right? You have your direct sites, your marketplaces, and then you also have to take in consideration how these faucets can impact your brick and mortar. So, and it's challenging, but it is possible. So I think the last bit would just be realizing there is a way to perfectly accommodate that ecosystem and keep it growing.
This is the E-commerce Braintrust, a podcast about building momentum online for established consumer brands. Join our hosts and their expert guests for high-level conversations about e-commerce strategies, trends, and innovations. Access our Braintrust and boost your brand's e-commerce potential.
Hello and welcome back to the show. This is Kiri Masters, one of your hosts here at the Ecommerce Braintrust podcast. And this is our third episode where we're talking with Bobsled team members about their tips and best practices for selling on Amazon. So just to recap a couple of the most recent episodes that we had, 2 episodes ago, we shared the top 4 tips to prepare for Q4 with our 3 PPC managers at Bobsled. And on last week's show, we talked with Jen Hoser about her top tools to use as a seller on Seller Central. And today we're talking with another project manager at Bobsled Marketing, Rachel Street, about her experience working with over 80 brands on the Amazon channel. So in her discussion with Julie today, Rachel gets into a little bit of her professional background. She came to Bobsled from eTails, where she worked with dozens and dozens of brands selling on Amazon. And so she's really been able to bring a lot of additional context to her role as a project manager at Bobsled, given all of that experience. So there's a few different themes that emerge in Julie and Rachel's conversation, and something that we've spoken about a lot on the podcast, and really what the theme of this whole show is about, is resources and capabilities. So when you have someone like Rachel leading your Amazon integration, then she's seen a lot of things in the past and is able to guide a lot of the work effort. But a situation that we deal with a lot at Bobsled is with traditional brands who have done a great job, often over decades, of building their retail sales channels and partnerships with retailers. And then in the last 10, 15 years, maybe they've developed their online store capability. And then Amazon rolls around and maybe has kind of crept up on these brands in a way because they don't have that capability in-house, and it's been something that maybe their customers have been asking about. Maybe their retailers have been complaining about, and they've decided eventually that they need to pay attention to Amazon. So that situation is something that is pretty common. And I guess Rachel's point is that it's not too late to start. It's just the wrong move to actually ignore the Amazon channel. So I'm going to run this interview with Julie and Rachel and come back to you after their conversation with a few takeaways of my own. Hope you enjoy it.
Hello. Today's episode, we're going to dig into lessons learned from managing more than 80 brands on Amazon. And to help me do that, I've got Rachel Street joining me. Rachel is a project manager here at Bobsled Marketing. But prior to joining Bobsled earlier this summer, she worked for one of Amazon's largest retailers. And over the course of about 4 years or so, Rachel got to experience working with dozens and dozens of brands. And as you can expect, she learned many, many things during her time. So Rachel, welcome to the E-commerce Braintrust. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I've given a bit of an intro of your background, but is there anything else you'd like to share with everybody?
Well, I think, Amazon kind of speaks for itself, but like you said, yeah, I'm new to Bobsled, but Amazon is something that I have a huge passion for and have been heavily involved in for the past 4 years. And previously the relationship was more focused on retailing products on behalf of brands on Amazon, and even more further into that specifically, I was really focused on the marketing initiatives offered on Amazon and their impact that they have on your product sales on Amazon. So I was really fortunate to work with a really great team. It's really where my love and passion for data came from, is, figuring out what works, how can we scale that, and how can we manipulate it to further grow those revenue streams. So that's a little bit more about my background and my passion.
Nice. I think a passion for data is key when working with Amazon.
Absolutely, yes.
Well, like I said, today we're going to talk about some of the things that you learned while managing so many brands on Amazon's marketplace. And the brands that you worked with, did they cover a variety of categories, or were they targeted to a couple categories in particular?
Yeah, they're kind of all over the board, which is really great. The retailer worked with thousands of brands, which, their priority was always the brands themselves. So it really gave me a good opportunity to work with the really diverse set of brands. And like I mentioned, specifically, I was more heavily involved with marketing, but I think to that point, and, looking at the data, different products are going to sell differently and have different, metrics associated with them. Maybe you're working with, a higher end electronic company and the price is higher. It's going to take a little bit longer for that consumer to decide to purchase that product. So implementing different tactics through that sales funnel, you just kind of learn the niches, I should say, of each category.
Got it. So the data kind of helped identify some trends that were category specific, but would you be able to tease out some of the top trends that you noted in your time managing these brands across the board, regardless of category? What were some of the things that you took away from your time working at that retailer?
Yeah, so I think mostly when it comes to Amazon itself, there's a few common themes here. And I think with brands, and I do think this is changing more so recently, and it's starting to become more of an active priority for brands to be on Amazon and different marketplaces. But I think, the first part is not having enough resources, or it not being a priority within the company, Amazon itself. A lot of companies, especially those older brands, they have, pre-existing relationships, and they have all of their, revenue streams pretty isolated and pretty optimal. So Amazon is something that, doesn't usually make it to the table a lot. So we can kind of dive through that in a bit. But another common theme I would run into is that for brands that weren't already on Amazon, is that they assume that their products aren't on Amazon, and then also that they don't have consumers that are interested in buying their products on Amazon. And then lastly, I think it's a lot of work to create your online retail ecosystem, right? You have your direct sites, your marketplaces, and then you also have to take in consideration how these faucets can impact your brick and mortar. So, and it's challenging, but it is possible. So I think the last bit would just be realizing there is a way to perfectly accommodate that ecosystem and keep it growing.
Great. So there's a lot of meat in each of these threads that you've identified here. Let's start at the beginning. The first one you noted was that Amazon didn't always make it to the company's big table, as you said. So it was kind of blinders to Amazon. Mm-hmm. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the priorities, it just wasn't made a priority. So, you'd have companies that would say Amazon doesn't really do much for us. And I think it's really because the potential is capped or lost before it really takes off. Like I mentioned, Amazon is a beast, and managed correctly and proactively, it can absolutely be something significant. I mean, you look at the multi-million-dollar brands that are out there that started through being an FBA seller on Amazon, and they're still only FBA on Amazon. I mean, I'm sure they have some social impact and everything, but primarily they started and grew their business on Amazon. So that in itself, I feel like speaks volumes for the potential. And when you look at the resources that are really needed to capitalize on Amazon, you need to have proper inventory management. Marketing is a huge piece. And so, having your search engine optimization, running direct response marketing campaigns like sponsored products and other PPC campaigns. And then also, you have to make sure that your products are well represented on Amazon. And that's where having that conversion driving content on your product listings is going to come into play. So a lot of times there's pieces missing. And I really do think that all of these efforts are required continually. And more importantly, require a strategic vision. And like you said, I don't know if you said this recently, but we've said it before, it's not a set it and forget it market.
Yeah. So it's not so much that it was completely ignoring Amazon, but it was kind of brands dipping their toe into the marketplace, but not committing to it with a comprehensive plan or with, across the board resourcing to hit all the marks that you need to hit in order to have a successful presence.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. They didn't see the results that they were looking for. And I 9 times out of 10, it's because there's a piece missing.
Got it. So what you see, in terms of those pieces missing, were there any pieces that you saw carry more weight than another, whether it be proper inventory management or a missing piece around PPC or, branding or capturing the images of your product, whatever it might be? Were there certain pieces that you saw have more significant impact on the performance of an account than others? Or did you kind of see it as equal pieces in a puzzle to create the presence needed?
Yeah, there's 100%, there's a synergy and it's a relationship. I think most commonly what comes into play and what I see happen a lot is that the content's lacking. So, and I feel like this is probably the grunt of the work. If you look at the optimization side of Amazon, is having high quality imagery and content that really is interesting and will lead to higher conversion rate. And so, for example, if you're running PPC campaigns or sponsored products, let's say, and you're, putting a budget behind it and investing in it, and you're seeing a high click-through rate, but you're seeing a low conversion rate, that's because for some reason, when that consumer lands on your product landing page, it's not convincing enough for them. They're always going to want another product. That does happen. But I think if you're running PPC campaigns and you're driving it to a dull listing that doesn't have high quality imagery and content and even reviews. If you're a brand and you're not managing your reviews and consumers are looking at those reviews and they're seeing that feedback and they're looking to see, okay, how did they combat this? And they want that information. So I think I kind of went off board there, but I definitely think it's the product listing in and of itself. So that's where you should be starting.
No, I think you hit on a really important point because I think often you can SEO and PPC, it's super interesting and it's very buzz. It's the buzz right now. Amazon themselves is investing so much in their advertising. So to put your time and attention and resources there makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. However, you can have a beautifully SEO, a page that has the SEO very much taken into account and covered. But if you land on the page and your images don't tell the story, mm-hmm. and the content itself isn't enough to differentiate the value of your product over the tens or hundreds or mm-hmm. thousands of like products on Amazon, it's not going to convert to a sale. Mm-hmm. So it's like you said, there's a synergy and you can't forsake the actual content development just because SEO is strong. Mm-hmm. So I think that you hit on a very good point there.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
And it's definitely a heavy lift. Developing conversion-focused content, it takes time, it takes expertise, it takes a lot of resourcing. So I could see where that's one that might kind of go to the wayside, but it definitely would have a significant impact if it's not part of the whole cycle of review and updating and optimization in an account.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really the foundation. And, when it comes to testing, there's a significant amount of room to test different areas of the product listing, whether it's the title or the imagery or the type of imagery. But before you can even test and scale, you have to have your foundation down.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And then you get back to the data again.
Yeah.
You do the testing and you look at the data and what does it tell you that's working? That's the data nerd comes out in all of us.
Yes, exactly.
So one of the other points that you raised is that often brands would assume that because either they're not on Amazon or they're not committed to Amazon, they have a small presence, they assume their product isn't on Amazon and they assume that their customers aren't there. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit more about how that played out.
Yeah, this is something that I've heard time and time again, and I'm definitely happy to see brands embracing Amazon more so these days. But, prior to the big, I would say, before the last 2 years, I would get this as a common pushback. And I think, with there being literally 100 million Prime subscribers. I think as of April, they reported on. Statistically, this is just, a very few instances where it would be the case where your products are not actually on Amazon and you're not having consumers looking for your products on Amazon, especially more so lately with the, social media really pushing, even influencers driving more traffic to Amazon. A consumer is going to see a product and they know that Amazon has great Prime 2-day shipping for your returns. They know that they're really set up for success and can count on getting that package 2 days from now. So they're seeing a product that they like, for example, on Instagram, and they're going to search, they're opening their Amazon app and they're searching for that product on Amazon. And I know even from personal experience, it's always, I will find a product and I can always know if the brand is actually heavily involved in Amazon or not, because a product will populate and it's just like a really poor quality image and the price is either absurdly high or low. And then there's just like shipping and it will be there in 10 to 15 days. So it's just, and I guess that kind of brings it up to the point is that when I see instances like that, or when consumers see instances like that, it doesn't create a trusting atmosphere and it kind of brings down your brand integrity. So speaking of brand integrity, a lot of times, and this is what's happening, is that your product is going to be on Amazon. Unfortunately, if you're not taking charge of that as a manufacturer on Amazon, you're going to end up with these unknown sellers because Amazon is, an open market. So those unknown sellers, what they're going to be doing is that they don't have that relationship with the manufacturer or that established relationship. So at the end of the day, they're really just trying to make money. And so they're going to be racing to zero, however they got your product. And what's happening is that that's actually going to start impacting your brick and mortars because whoever is on Amazon, unknown seller, rogue seller, however you want to speak to them, is just cutting the price and they're preventing your other retailers from being able to sell your products. So 100%, it's very important that brands take advantage of Amazon and immediately start, being strategic with it and, being the ones to put the products on Amazon so they can create and correlate their branding that they have right now and build that brand integrity. And, also keep in mind that unknown seller, going back to product reviews and seller feedback, they're probably not getting back to your customers who are leaving reviews about your product. So again, it's a huge brand integrity piece when it comes to Amazon and assuming that your product's not on Amazon. So yeah, long story long, I really can't say enough about how vitally important it is that brands recognize that their products are on Amazon and that they be the ones to put it on there.
Yeah, I think that is a point that has to be driven home because just because you haven't actively listed your product, your brand on there, it doesn't mean that other people aren't seeing the opportunity in your product and putting it up on Amazon. And so if you want to control your brand message and control how your customers receive your product, you have to take ownership over Amazon as a channel. And that's something that Kiri and I have dug into a fair amount on the podcast here, actually, is like how brands are now owning more directly their presence on Amazon for just this reason. They want to own the message of their brand. They want to own the pricing of their brand and they don't want it to impact, they want to mitigate the impact on their other channels as much as possible. And the best way to do that is to own the presence directly yourself. So yes, long story long for good reason. It's an important point to make.
Absolutely. It is.
And so your last point kind of, all your points are piggybacking nicely off of each other. But your final point was that brands are able to include Amazon in their picture without it having significant detrimental impact on their other retail or e-commerce presences. Would you talk to me a little bit about how you saw this playing out with the brands that you worked with?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I've just been just really fortunate to work with a lot of diverse brands. And it's really inspiring to see the different ways that brands and even other Amazon experts are figuring out ways to take control over how to retail their products on the different marketplaces and Amazon specifically. And, so there's a number of different ways that you can create that strategic relationship. For example, pricing's always an issue. So if you have someone pricing on Amazon and they're pricing, 30 to 40% below your brick and mortar, implementing a MAP policy is going to help control that pricing. Or say, for example, you have a retailer relationship, a direct site retailer relationship, that sells a certain line of your products, creating a distribution policy so that certain products that you are selling to your customers aren't ending up on Amazon and hurting that other direct relationship. So yeah, I think that's something that I've seen over the last few years become really successful as far as how brands are tracking and making sure which products are going where to ensure that none of their, customers or their retailers are being impacted or hurt by Amazon. And then also on the other end, they're putting, that effort behind Amazon to make sure that their pricing is consistent and that revenue is also growing and scaling as well.
Very interesting. So I think all in all, what this boils down to is that brands over time need to develop or benefit from developing a full appreciation of what their presence on Amazon could look like, take ownership of it, dedicate the resources to it, be strategic in your entree into Amazon and your presence, and it can reap some good rewards if you approach it through the lens of how you can make it work for you.
Yep, exactly. And one thing that I try and touch on is that less is absolutely more when it comes to Amazon. So going back to that distribution policy that you have, making sure that only top qualified retailers are selling your product on Amazon that you have a relationship with and that they are contributing to your brand. Because if you open the floodgates and you have, 25 to 30 sellers on that one product, that's 25 to 30 different people or sellers who can change the content, who can price differently. So that map and distribution policy is going to help protect that. And I think that's one of the common pain points that you'll hear with Amazon is unknown sellers and the ability to keep pricing consistent.
Yeah, so less is more and strategy is key when determining who can distribute your product.
Yes.
That is a good point. Well, Rachel, thank you for the time today. It was great talking with you, and we will be sure to have you back to talk more about your experiences managing brands on Amazon. You've offered a lot of great insight. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I definitely look forward to joining sometime soon.
Great.
Well, that was a really great conversation with Rachel Street and Julie Spear. Hope you got a lot out of it. A couple of takeaways from me. One is the importance of content on Amazon. And this is something that a lot of brands don't think of first or immediately when they're considering their Amazon approach. But content is really important, and it's becoming even more necessary to invest in content in order to stand out from competitors. And just given the nature of the way people are shopping, especially for high consideration purchases where people are going to be doing not only price comparisons, but feature comparisons, looking at product reviews, maybe looking beyond Amazon for a bit more social proof, because honestly, there's more and more distrust of Amazon's review system and their ranking algorithm. So this is one way that brands can differentiate is through their content and using enhanced brand content if you're a seller, using A+ pages if you're a vendor, and using those templates to actually tell the brand story, describe how the product is different, use tables to sort of compare and contrast your product versus previous generations of that same product or variations or even competitors' products. There's lots of different ways to sell a product's features and benefits through those modules. Rachel also notes that PPC and conversions and SEO ranking factors are all impacted by this content. So there's not just the warm and fuzzy feeling that you have knowing a customer is getting all the information that they need on your product page, but it actually really helps with getting your product to the top of the search results, whether paid or organic. The other point that Rachel made that I thought was really interesting is just thinking about the customer experience on Amazon. And this sounds so obvious, but things like making sure pricing is competitive relative to competitors. And it doesn't mean necessarily offering the lowest price. If people see an offer that's significantly below competitors, it really gets you thinking that there's something wrong with that product or that you're going to get scammed somehow. So doing that competitive landscape review periodically is really important, as well as shipping policies. So, everyone that shops on Amazon generally wants to have free 2-day shipping. It's something that people have been trained to expect now. So whether you're using FBA or you're a vendor, which makes your products Prime eligible, or if you must ship that unit from your facility using drop shipping, or if you're using the merchant fulfilled option, that your shipping policies are actually competitive as well. So all really great points. And one interesting podcast I listened to recently was the Gimlet Reply All podcast. And it's been a little while since I listened to that, but they recently did a show about Amazon, and one of the hosts had received a janky kind of electric toothbrush that she expected to get within 2 days because she was shopping on Amazon and she's a regular consumer, so that's what she expected. And the product didn't arrive within 2 days. It arrived 3 weeks later from Europe, and the electric toothbrush had a European power adapter, and the seller thought there was nothing wrong with that. So the Reply All podcast producers did this investigation into what happened, and sure enough, it was a third-party seller who was selling products from Europe, and according to the product description, there was nothing really wrong with shipping it out with the European power adapter. But this whole situation kind of escalated when they did this podcast, and the seller was, I'm not sure how much negative attention actually resulted in lost sales to them. But my point is that by having an experience that's so different between shopping from Amazon first party or through FBA versus some of the experience that third party sellers are offering through Fulfilled by Merchant is starting to show up in mainstream press and has been for a while, but there is a lot of attention on Amazon around things like their review ecosystem and how a real gray market of paid reviews and incentivized reviews is emerging, as well as counterfeiting is a huge attention grabber from Amazon. They're really concerned about that. And also just the customer experience. And they don't like to hear these kind of stories show up where someone received an electric toothbrush from Europe with a European power adapter that arrived 3 weeks later. That's not the experience that Amazon wants to have on their platform. So as more people hear about these stories, they're becoming a little bit more concerned about what their experience is going to be shopping on Amazon. They might be a little bit more leery if they see an offer from a third-party seller that is going to be arriving in 2 weeks or comes from another country, let's say. So it's just something for brands to be aware of, is that people are getting a little bit more cautious about shopping on Amazon, and anything that is outside of the normal profile of a Prime eligible item that's similar in price to other products is going to look a little bit suspicious. So I'll link up to that podcast episode in the notes. It's quite an interesting take on the changes that Amazon has had in the public perception, at least. And I'll leave my commentary there. I think that it's really great to hear Rachel's approach and how she's bringing her previous experience working with e-tails to what we're doing at Bobsled. If you enjoyed the show, I'd really appreciate a rating and a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to this podcast. And the show notes are available at ecommercebraintrust.com. Thanks for listening.